Good morning, everyone. It is Friday, April the 17th, 2020. It is currently 10:43 a.m. Central Time, and I'm coming to you live from Victory Baptist Church, located here in the middle of nowhere, Texas. Yes, the middle of nowhere, Texas. Ovalo, Texas, for those who are actually interested where I'm speaking to you from. Some of you may be interested. Some of you may not care, but yes, I'm coming to you live from Victory Baptist Church, and I'm here obviously in an empty building because, as you know, obviously I'm not going to tell you anything that you don't know, but we are in the middle of a pandemic. The coronavirus, COVID-19, that has spread around the world. Well, we are all living with all of the consequences of this pandemic. And we could argue, many would, that the decisions made by government officials to close everything down, some would say that the decisions they've gone too far. And there are people protesting in some states, saying, hey, you know what? It's time to reopen everything, open everything back up. So today in this live stream, I'm going to be here. I don't know how long I'm going to be here. I'm going to be doing a lot of things today, but I wanted to start the morning off by asking that question: to open or not to open? That is the question today. To open or not to open? That is the question. When do we reopen everything? When should we reopen everything? What is your opinion? It seems that people are somewhat divided on this. Some are like, look, this whole thing was overblown. People die all the time with all kinds of problems, so we shouldn't shut everything down to simply try to save some lives because people die. People should take precautions. People should take personal responsibility, but we should not destroy the economy to try to save, the people that we're trying to save, because it's not as bad as everyone's made it out to be. That's kind of the idea of one side. The other side is like, look, this is a serious situation, and we should take every precaution that we can to save as many people as we can. And so people are divided. And of course, the arguing starts all over the internet. Everyone's like, I'm right. No, you're wrong. I'm wrong. You're wrong. We're all wrong. We're all right. Everyone is arguing, trying to get their point of view across. So what I want to do today is I want to at least have a somewhat of a hopefully rational discussion. It seems like you can't have too much of a rational discussion about this because everyone is so sure that their position is right. And I would just this is what I would like to say right from the start. Look, unless you have all the information about COVID-19, unless you know everything about it, unless you are an expert on it, you're just throwing out opinions. You're just throwing out ideas. You're just throwing out theories. Unless you're basing this on some kind of actual documented fact, then you're just throwing out ideas. And let me make this very clear. It's easy when you're like right now, it's easy. I'm sitting here in an empty building and I'm not responsible for anything happening in the country. I'm not responsible, right? So if I say, open everything up, let's just say I sit here and say, open everything up. And I hop all over, the internet telling everyone we should open everything up. This is ridiculous. This is ridiculous. Open everything up. I can say that. And then if they open everything up and then the virus starts spreading and 100,000 people die that possibly wouldn't have died if we'd have kept everything closed, who cares? No one's going to remember what I said, right? No one's going to remember. I'm not responsible. Now, and that's how it works. People can sit there and say, do this and do that because they're not going to answer for it. No one's going to come to their house and say, wait a minute, weren't you on social media calling for everything to reopen and now 100,000 people are dead? Hey, this is on your hands. The blood is on your hands. No, you just make all kinds of claims and move on about your business if you turn out to be wrong, or you just go back and delete everything you said and no one's going to hold you accountable. But if you are a governor, if you are a president, if you are in charge of a company and responsible for your employees, and you make a decision and then people start dying, that's on you. Not only is it on you from a political standpoint that you're probably going to get voted out of office, but you're going to be remembered in history as the person who reopened everything. And as a result, this many people died. Now, if you reopen everything and everything goes well and we turn the economy around and people's jobs are saved, you'll be remembered as the one who saved the economy and that you saw through all of the hype. So there's a chance to be the hero or there's a chance to be the villain. And people who have to make decisions, that's why they get paid to make those decisions, because they get one shot and it either works out right or it works out wrong. I just want to tell everyone, if you're not responsible and you don't have that responsibility, you running around screaming what people should do, it really is somewhat unfair because you're not the one answering for it. We have to allow the people making these tough decisions, we have to give them a little bit of leeway, a little bit of grace, a little bit of mercy shown as they're trying to figure these things out, because it's not an easy decision. People's lives are, hanging in the balance. And not only that, even if you reopen everything, let's say you reopen everything May the 1st, and by May the 15th, everyone's like, this is spreading. Stop, everyone stop, close everything down. Well, at that point, you could possibly even make the situation worse, because now you have the virus coming back in a sense with a vengeance, and now you're going to have to shut everything down even longer. So you could actually do long-term harm by opening it too soon. Now, you could argue by not opening it, you could do long-term damage and long-term harm. That's why, look, there's no easy answer. There's no easy answer here. And I just find it funny that it's always people who have, they're not going to be held responsible, running around telling everyone what they should do and condemning everyone about what they're doing. We can't, that's not the case. And listen, especially for Christians, this is not the time to engage in all of that. I keep telling Christians, this is the time for us to be focused on the things of God. You focused on what is the condition of the church going to be after this? Are we benefiting spiritually from this? What can we learn from this? How can we minister to people? How can we help people? Not get caught up in arguing about all of this, but it seems that that's what Christians would prefer to talk about, is all of these things. So we're going to address it. I'm going to try to be fair. And I just want you to, though, at least realize if you're not making the decisions, it's easy to just throw out, hey, this is what you should do. Right. Of course, you're saying that from the comfort of your couch in your house, and nobody is going to remember what you said. So just acknowledge that you're not really, it's easy for you to make a decision when no one's going to come back and hold you accountable for what you are suggesting. It's easy. So let's do this. In light of the question, should we open or not to open? That is the question. In light of this idea, let's at least bring in some statistics, right? Let's at least have the latest facts. And then you can at least consider this, all right? As of right now, Friday, April the 17th, 2020 at 10:51 a.m., total confirmed cases, 2,182,734. This is global. 2,182,734. Right? Total number of deaths, 147,384. 147,384. Now, whenever I read the number of deaths, what I will get is 10 emails saying, yeah, but this kills more people. Drinking and driving kills more people. And they throw heart attacks kill more. They throw out all of these numbers killing more people. I understand that. And another email that I will get is, well, they predicted the numbers would be far worse. They did. The numbers haven't been as bad, but is it possibly because we've shut down the entire world to try to prevent those bad numbers from occurring? Is it possible that if we did not do the social distancing, if we didn't shut everything down, that the numbers would be astronomical right now? You have to at least consider that as a possibility. I mean, it's almost like some people are like, look, the numbers aren't bad. Almost like See, I told you so. We should be celebrating the fact that the numbers aren't so bad. We should be celebrating that and saying what contributed to the numbers being lower than what some people feared. Now, that's still a lot of people that have died. That's still a lot of confirmed cases. That is still a lot. What is happening here in the United States? Well, let's listen to this, or not listen to this. Let me read this to you. This comes from the Wall Street Journal. Reported U.S. coronavirus deaths. All right, here it is. Reported U.S. coronavirus deaths reach record 4,591 people in 24 hours. Reported U.S. coronavirus deaths reach record 4,591 in 24 hours. All right, now that to me seems like a lot. Let me close this. They want me to buy a subscription. Here we go. Here is the story. All right. So record U.S. coronavirus deaths reach record of 4,591 in 24 hours. The number of reported deaths in the U.S. from the new coronavirus spiked to nearly double the prior record Thursday as governors extended their lockdown orders and the Trump administration released new federal guidelines to reopen the economy. In the 24 hours ending at 8 p.m. Eastern Time Thursday, 4,591 people were reported to have died from COVID-19, according to a Wall Street Journal analysis of data from Johns Hopkins University. The prior record was 2,569 on Wednesday. The number of new reported U.S. cases, meanwhile, was roughly equal with that on Wednesday at 31,451. So 4,591 people died in a 24-hour period here in the United States of America. Now, that's a lot of people. That's a lot of people. Now, I've listened to talk radio almost nonstop through this, and you'll hear, yeah, but look at how many people die from this, and look at how many, and they'll just pull like from any kind of disease, any kind of from accidents, from this, and they'll like, see, more people die from that, so we shouldn't be worried about it. That's a lot of people dying from a virus that is spreading. That's a lot of people. So at least do this. When you're arguing about to open or not to open, at least acknowledge that there's over 2 million people, confirmed cases of people being infected with it, and that many people have died. And that many people have died in 24 hours in the United States of America alone. I would have to pull in all the other numbers, how many people died around the world in 24 hours from it. I was hearing someone on talk radio last night. Well, this many people die every day of starvation. And I'm like, what? I don't understand. It's like, hey, this is almost the way. This many people died, but so what? More people die of this. So, and I'm like, well, could we be a little bit more sympathetic for the people who actually, for the family members who lost loved ones? So in this debate about to open or not to open, we at least need to have those numbers. So let me ask you, over 4,000 people die in 24 hours. In light of that, how would you answer the question? Now, this is just personal. I don't think you should be running around on social media arguing this, but just ask yourself, over 4,000 people have died in 24 hours. Do you believe it's the time to reopen everything? Now, you could say, well, I believe it's time to reopen in certain areas. And that seems to be the way that the government is going to move forward. It seems that this is the way it's going to happen. Even though President Trump claimed he had absolute authority, okay, yeah, no, you don't. But he claimed he had absolute authority to open or not to open. Ultimately, someone told him and explained to him the way things work. No, the governors will make that decision. So you have governors of all of these states. They're going to be given the power, or they have the power, to make the final decision on what they're going to do. Are they going to open or not to open? And I think it's fair that if you have a state where the numbers are low, that you open, and the states where there's still lots of problems, you remain closed. Now, here becomes the issue. In the states where everything opens, do you have a mass influx of people coming from states where things are closed? For example, I live here in Texas. Let's say Texas opens, but Louisiana, right, remains closed? Do we have an influx of people pouring in from Louisiana to Texas, and with them coming, yes, you bring all their money and an economic boom to parts of Texas, but do they possibly bring the COVID-19 with them? And if they do, then all of it starts to spread in Texas where everything is open, and then you have to come in and close everything. That is a question that I keep asking. If one state closes, the other states open, does people just pour over the border to come pouring into that state, coming in, just crossing the state boundary lines, the border lines between states, pouring in, and then what does that possibly lead to? That's a question that should be asked. But I agree that there's some parts of the country where the numbers are extremely low. So why is everything closed? Well, we could get into that discussion. So what we're going to do, I'm going to play what I heard on NPR this morning. They discussed this a little bit. I'm going to break in here or there and throw in some comments, but I just at least wanted to throw this out today. And again, my major emphasis, I'm going to stress this, is to Christians. Christians keep getting, in my opinion, distracted by all of this and caught up in all of this, and we come across as arrogant, condescending, that we've got it all figured out when nobody has it figured out. Everyone's trying to figure this out. And I just want to stress to Christians, this is the opportunity to be talking about more important issues. This is an important time for the church to look at itself. This is a time to look for confession, repentance, spiritual growth. What can we learn from this spiritually? Not just getting into a political argument. I keep seeing so many Christian sites as, Big Brother trying to come after us. This is the New World Order trying to shut us down. And it's like, can we just try to avoid all of this? And yes, there can be a time that Christians have to say, wait a minute, constitutional rights. And I'm not saying that that's not a conversation that we should not have, but can we give this a little bit of time to see where this is going to go, how this is going to play out? I mean, obviously, if the COVID-19 situation passes and the government is still trying to, go after churches and keep churches closed and ban us and shut us down, then we can cry persecution, and then we can start protesting, and then we can do whatever is necessary, even if that means going to jail. But again, I've pointed out that back during the Spanish flu in 1918, churches were closed. And in some cases, there were cities where churches were closed, but saloons were allowed to remain open. So, so this is not the first time this kind of thing has happened. But let's listen to this report from NPR. I'll throw in some comments, and we'll try to at least just hopefully give you something to think about in regards to this entire subject. All right, here we go.
After a lot of made-for-TV toing and froing about who has the authority to reopen the American economy, the White House released new guidance saying it's up to the states.
Which did not stop the president from throwing out a date again. He said yesterday that he thinks some states should be able to open for more business by May 1st. Dr. Deborah Birx of the White House Pandemic Response Team said something different.
We did not put a timeline on any of the phases. We want the governors, with the data that they have, community by community, to be setting up those timelines.
To talk about what is in the guidance, we've got NPR's global health correspondent, Nurit Eisenman. Hi, Nurit.
Good morning.
So we heard Dr. Birx there saying that there are going to be some phases. What exactly is in these guidelines?
Well, they're short on specifics. States are going to have to figure out a lot of this for themselves. But that said, as you say, the proposal is that they open in 3 stages. To give you a flavor, phase 1 looks a lot like the current stay-at-home situation, except if you're not in a vulnerable category like the elderly, you can socialize in groups of less than 10 people. Telework still encouraged, but employers can bring some people back in the workplace. Phase 2, now it's socializing with up to 50 people. Schools reopen. Non-essential travel can resume. Phase 3, even vulnerable people can go back in public if they keep 6 feet apart. Everyone's back in the workplace, but still large venues like churches, sports arenas have to make sure people can sit at a distance. And all along, states will be keeping an eye on this system the U.S. has for flagging sudden rises in flu-like cases as a kind of early warning sign to alert them if, oops, the virus is spreading again.
So we hear President Trump talking about May 1st, but when can states go into phase 1?
Well, there are criteria that states have to meet before they can start phase 1. And then again,
Now, this is important. May 1 is the date. A lot of people are like, hey, by May 1st, we should just open everything. Well, obviously, it sounds like that May 1st, not everywhere is going to open. All right, that just seems like an absolute given. May 1st, not every place is going to open. And I know that I believe by May 1st, you're going to have, I feel, now this is speculation. I feel that by May 1st, you're going to have a lot of people in a lot of states just say, I don't care what the rules are, and you're going to have a lot of disregarding rules, breaking rules, and a lot of protests. I don't think you're going to be able to keep things. I think to be realistic, sometime after May 1st, I think people are just going to be done, and you're going to start having some major problems. And that is something you don't want to see. So I think if it's all possible for a state to open, you want to open just to avoid some major pushback from a lot of people. You've seen protests in Michigan. You've seen protests in other states. This is going to be. I think we're gonna have the science and the medical world with one view. We have the politicians who obviously don't want to keep things closed down, and there's obviously you can see why for their own political life and for economic concerns, and you've got economic concerns as well. I think you got a lot of different factors, and a lot of different groups are going to see things a little differently. But May 1st, that's still a long time away. Still a long time away. I mean, we're what, April 17th? April 17th going to May 1st. I think more and more people are going to become less willing to abide by rules, and especially when their livelihoods are put at stake. And I think you're going to start seeing a lot of people saying enough with this. So I think that realistically speaking, you're not going to be able to go beyond May 1st, but I think some states are not going to be able to, and I think you're going to start having some problems. So, but these guidelines, I want you to listen to these guidelines. There's certain things you have to do, and I don't think a lot of states, I don't even think a lot of places even have these things and the ability to do some of these things. And if they don't, then do they stay shut down, or how long will it take to get these things ready to go? I think there's a lot of questions here, but let's continue listening.
And before they can advance to stage 2 and to stage 3. For instance, over the last 14 days, confirmed COVID cases need to be trending down. So do the percentage of tests that are coming back positive, and also cases of people with COVID-like or flu-like symptoms. And the state's hospitals have to be able to treat everybody and test their healthcare workers. But here's the problem. While health specialists say, sure, states need to have a downward trend in their cases before they can open up, that's just one of several targets they say states need to meet. And the rest of those targets aren't in these guidelines.
So what's missing here?
For one thing, the guidelines don't say how low your case count needs to get, just that the trend should be downward. Also, in countries that manage to control their outbreaks without resorting to drastic social distancing, the consensus is what made the difference is having these rapid reaction teams that quickly identify anyone who's been infected, trace their contacts, test those people, isolate and quarantine as needed. Basically detecting and quashing any new rise in cases before it can start a whole new flare-up. Because remember, the virus is still out there, and the vast majority of us remain vulnerable to it. So public health specialists say before states open up, they have to have enough capacity to test everyone who is infected and trace their contacts.
Right. We've heard so much about this. We need testing. We need contact tracing. Do the guidelines say anything about those things?
They do note that states need to have that ability, but they don't tell states how to determine if they have enough. And at the press conference last night, officials basically just said that, that's not going to be a problem. But NPR's reporting indicates that it is still a problem. State labs and hospitals tell us they can't get enough chemical reagents, can't get enough swabs. So by that measure, very few, if any, states are ready to open up.
NPR's Narit Eisenman. Narit, we appreciate it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, well, there you have it. Now, I'm going to play the rest of their report here in a minute because there's some other things they talk about that I think we should talk about as well. So there's the guidelines. There's a lot of questions about these guidelines, how these guidelines are going to work. Does states have these teams that can come in, identify, trace, quarantine? If they don't have these abilities, they don't. I guess here's the question. I'll state it this way. If you reopen and you don't have the ability to do these things, are you not? I mean, again, in some places you may reopen and not have a problem, maybe. But again, if you reopen and you don't have these ability, are you only just basically reopening only to find yourself in a major outbreak of the virus, and then once again you have to shut everything down? Does that little reprieve of opening for a couple of weeks benefit the economy, or would it be better to hold back, keep everything shut down for 2 or 3 extra weeks, get everything in place, ready to go, reopen, and then have the medical system ready to go and have these teams ready to go. So the second there is a report, they can move in, identify, trace back contact, quarantine, and protect the rest of the city, the state, so that the economy can remain open. Would it be better to have a long-term solution than to just reopen to try to get some money pouring in, but then you ultimately create a problem down the road? I don't know. I think there's a lot of things to consider here, but I do completely understand that the economic concerns are starting to become serious. I mean, the economic issues are I think they've already beyond serious, and what the long-term consequences, I don't know. We don't know. I mean, from a church perspective, already seen articles, predicting, 5% of all churches could close their doors by the end of 2020 as a result of the economic fallout from COVID-19. That's a scary thought. So I think there's plenty of churches. That's why I believe some churches have decided to do the drive-in service so that they can go around car to car to get money. I think that's why many are opening the doors to have services. I think some of this is economically driven. And of course you can't deny the economic concern. You can't deny the economic impact. You can't. But at the same time, you don't want people dying. This is a balancing act. And again, it's easy for you to just lean. It's easy for you to say, well, I'm going to do this, or this is what we should do. It's easy for you to say that if you're not going to be held accountable and remembered in history as the one who made a decision that either saved or the decision that ultimately killed. When you've got no money in the game, okay, so to speak. In other words, you're not being held responsible, and you can just throw out your ideas. It's easy to hop on social media and just say whatever you want. But let's see what else they report on in this little clip.
All right, for the first time in decades, China's economy has actually gotten smaller.
China's government released the numbers yesterday, announcing a 6.8% decline in the first 3 months of 2020. The coronavirus put an end to almost half a century of constant growth for China, sometimes very rapid growth that made China the world's second largest economy.
We've got Jonathan Chang with us. He's the China bureau chief for the Wall Street Journal. He joins us from Beijing on Skype. Hey, Jonathan.
Hi there.
Can you just give us some context, explain exactly how hard the coronavirus has hit China's economy? We know the number, but what other metrics do you see or can feel that explain this?
Well, obviously, China is an important part of the global economy. It's the world's number 2 economy, and it's grown almost 100-fold from 1976. That was the end of the Cultural Revolution. That's when Mao Zedong died, and that's when China roughly began its reforms that's led it to where it is today. And so over that whole period of more than 4 decades, we've never seen China ever have a negative quarter in any case until now. And obviously, we knew that the coronavirus was a big deal. It started, hitting China in mid-January, and it's basically shut down the country now for more than 2 months. So we're a little bit ahead of the curve here. So we knew it was going to be bad. I think the question was how bad was it, and how honest would the Chinese government be with its numbers? And what we find today is that it has been relatively honest. I mean, negative 6.8% is really bad. We were expecting positive 6% coming into this quarter.
The Chinese government is acknowledging that this is a devastating hit?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, they could have. Economists have long been skeptical of Chinese numbers, and it's widely believed that the numbers are massaged a little bit. So if we had seen a number that had said this was a positive quarter, I think most people would have laughed out loud. If they had said -1 or -2, I think a lot of economists would have said this is, this is also sugar-coated, but 6.8 is definitely a real solid hit. I mean, again, it's sort of the inverse of what they had been expecting coming into this quarter.
We clearly live in this globalized world, right, where economies are tied very closely together. What are the likely implications of this drop in economic growth on the U.S., on other countries that are linked economically to China?
Well, I mean, we know that, of course, we had a big trade fight between the U.S. and China. It's not over yet, but that really highlighted how closely the two biggest economies in the world are integrated. So the question is really, what does this, mean for the U.S.? It means that the U.S. is going to get dragged down too. We're already seeing it, of course, and there's a lot of domestic impact from the shutdowns that we see across the U.S., but there will be a direct impact from China's economy shutting down as well. It's inevitable when you have the world's number 2 economy going down 6.8%, as we saw today.
Just really briefly, Jonathan, is the government there proposing any steps to rebound?
Yeah, I mean, they say that things are already getting better. And I can say here in Beijing, you can see life starting to return to normal just a little bit. There's probably going to be some stimulus coming, but nobody is expecting the kind of stimulus that we saw after the financial crisis in 2008. So we don't know whether it's going to be enough. And if infections start to creep up again, all bets are off.
Yeah. Jonathan Chang of the Wall Street Journal. We appreciate it, Jonathan. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
All right, that's when you talk about to open or not to open, there's the other side of the story. I mean, we've already mentioned it. I'll mention it again. The economic concern, to open or not to open. Well, you've got the health concern, you got the political concern, you got the economic concern, right? Politicians, they're trying to save their careers, their life, their legacy, being reelected, et cetera, et cetera. So they're trying to make decisions. You got the medical world going, wait a minute, what about this? And what about this? And you need this to reopen. You need this to reopen. You've got to be able to do this to reopen. And you've got the economic concern where people are like, look, I don't care about the medical concern and I don't care about your political career. I need my job back. I need to go to work. I need to provide for my family. You're going to bankrupt me. You're going to destroy everything I've worked for. So you've got all these competing concerns. And when you have competing concerns, listen to what happens. Competing concerns lead to division, arguing, fighting, and that becomes the major issue. That becomes the issue. Everyone has their perspective. Everyone sees it through a specific lens. You may be looking through it from an economic lens and you don't care about the medical side. You may be looking from it from a medical side and the economic concern, it's there, but you're not as worried about it. You may be looking from a political viewpoint, which is completely different than the average person. And again, these different perspectives divide people, and we have to understand the situation from the perspective of different people. We have to see the different perspectives, understand the different perspectives, try to hear that. It's like what we want to do is disprove the other perspective, right? Well, you don't want to open it up for medical concerns. Well, I'm just going to throw out all kinds of numbers to try to argue that I know more about medicine than you do. And then the people from medicine, they say, well, we shouldn't care about the economy. We should care about life. Well, I understand you should care about life, but caring about life is also caring about the economy because that's tied to people's life, their well-being, their future, their ability to even get health care. So I think all of this is tied together, and we just need to see that listen, as far as the church is concerned, as far as Christians are concerned, let's not let this become a dividing thing. As Christians, we need to stay focused on what the mission of the church is, to equip saints, to send people out, to preach the gospel, to baptize in the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit, to teach them to obey, to disciple. We have a mission. We have a purpose, and we must maintain that focus. And all of this noise out there, look, no one has any good answers. We can get brought into this, but we need to try to rise above it. So I think that's interesting. So do we reopen May 1st? Well, to reopen, you have to do all of these things. And we don't know if we can do all of those things. And I can guarantee you some states can't. So this is going to be going on for at least a couple of more weeks. All right. I think we're going to reach a point people are going to start protesting. It's going to become a problem. So we understand the reality of the situation. And then we have these different perspectives. We have the medical perspective, the economic perspective, and the political perspective. Please understand that's 3 different perspectives looking at one situation. And there's probably even more perspectives than those major 3. But let's see what else they are going to report on. All right, let's continue.
Okay, while China deals with the economic fallout from COVID-19, there are still a lot of questions about the exact origins of the virus.
Yeah, as we heard in the previous story, it is hard to check facts coming out of China's government. We do know Wuhan, China suffered the first outbreak, but the lack of transparency has fueled speculation and conspiracy theories, and the Trump administration says it is now working to find answers.
NPR national security correspondent Greg Myrie is with us. Good morning, Greg. So what is the U.S. government now saying about the origins of the virus?
Well, we've seen a distinct change in tone this week. The focus has been on the Wuhan wet market. And other narratives in the past weeks, months, were seen as speculative or even outright conspiracy theories. But in these last few days, there's more talk about the possibility that a naturally occurring virus might have leaked from the Wuhan Institute of Virology, which studies bat viruses. This has been stated most explicitly by the Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo. He cited the Wuhan Institute by name, noting that it's not that far from the wet market. And he didn't offer details and said there's still lots to learn.
This lab, have U.S. officials reached any preliminary conclusions?
No, they have not. I've been asking around the intelligence community and among military officials, and they've been more cautious in their language than Pompeo. The word that keeps cropping up is inconclusive. The intelligence community is digging hard. They haven't trusted the Chinese explanations, and they see this ongoing secretive behavior as very suspicious, but they're not prepared to make any final assessments right now. The chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Army General Mark Milley, addressed this question at the Pentagon this week.
It should be no surprise to you that we've taken a keen interest in that, and we've had a lot of intelligence take a hard look at that. And I would just say at this point, it's inconclusive, although the weight of evidence seems to indicate natural, but we don't know for certain.
So the key word here is natural, which has two meanings. This could mean it turned up organically at the wet market, which the theory we've heard most often. But it could also mean that it was a naturally occurring virus that was being studied in this Wuhan lab, and it accidentally infected a worker who spread it outside the lab. And the third thing we should note is this phrasing also indicates the U.S. doesn't have evidence that it was a man-made bioweapon.
Now, keep that in mind. No evidence that it was a man-made bioweapon. Now, the reason I want to talk about this is part of the conspiratorial thinking that is spreading. And again, spreading in many cases, I've heard it preached from pulpits. That this was a bioweapon released by China, released by the globalists in order to be able to force vaccinations on everyone, and they're going to use the vaccinations to reduce the population. I don't know why they would use the vaccinations to reduce the population. If you got a deadly virus, then manufacture a deadly virus and then just kill everyone with the virus. Why have a twofold plan? Let's create a virus that will kill some people, then bring in the vaccines to kill more people. I don't know, but that, and again, I've heard that literally preached from pulpits. So that is the kind of thing that we need to at least be aware of. Now, I want to make this very clear. This is very important. I've tried to warn people about the conspiratorial thinking. I've played clips from Christian radio where you hear this. I played a clip from Alex Jones. We've talked about this where we hear all kinds of craziness. Let me make this very clear. And I've stated it before, asking questions, good. Researching, trying to find information, great. Ask questions, fill in the gap that the questions create with backed up factual information, not wild-eyed speculation. And don't do what we heard Alex Jones do, quote a article from the Daily Mail, and then I go read the article from the Daily Mail, and the article from the Daily Mail did not support what he claimed it did. He took some of the information and then he went to a conclusion that was not supported by that information. We have to look up the information, but we should be able to ask questions. But I have to offer a warning here. Now, I don't have the clip right now, but I would challenge you, go to your favorite podcast platform, your podcast app, search for the Glenn Beck radio program, the Glenn Beck radio program. I believe his program is 3 hours long. In hour 3 today, hour 3 of the Glenn Beck radio program, he discusses a situation that has occurred between Glenn Beck radio program and Facebook. Facebook basically took down demonetize and I guess temporarily ban the Glenn Beck program because they had posted a clip from his television show where they had actual footage from China where they acknowledged that they were going into these caves to get these bats that had a coronavirus that was so contagious that you did not want to get it on your skin, and they were going to study these bats. Now, that means it's naturally occurring. In other words, this virus naturally occurs within bats. They brought these bats into the lab. According to Glenn Beck, the lab in question is about 300, I think he said like 300 feet, maybe. I don't know the exact measurement, 300 something, not 300 miles, but relatively very, very close to this market, this wet market there in China, and that they were studying these bats with this virus. So he brought up the idea that possibly this was even Glenn Beck doesn't believe it was a bioweapon created in a lab, but that it was something that was a naturally occurring virus brought into the lab to study, and something went wrong. And China has tried to cover that up. That is his claim. Facebook shut that down. Now, since today, they came back and removed that. And this is what they did. They were quoting Facebook, basically said, hey, this is wrong information. This is false information, and put a link to a USA Today article. And now that USA Today article, Facebook has removed that as not, I guess, being trustworthy. So that means Glenn Beck was possibly right. So this is a situation sometimes where you have someone out there questioning something, they get shut down by and supposedly the information that is used to shut it down later on is proven not to be accurate. This is the thing that worries me about tech companies coming in, trying to shut down people and removing certain ideas. You can't do that. I don't want tech companies trying to censor. Let people throw out their ideas, but you as the listener has to understand when something is a conspiracy theory and when something is factual. People have to learn how to process information. I don't need a tech company saying, we're going to say this is true, this is false, and they're just arbitrarily making the decision of what is true and what is false when possibly the source they quoted could be wrong. So I do not like censorship. I remember I've said it before. I don't like the fact that they shut down Alex Jones. I think his conspiracy theories in regards to Sandy Hook was horrible. But I still want him the ability to say it because questions can be raised and then other people can come and disprove that supposed theory. So I would challenge you to download the Glenn Beck program today, listen to the last hour where he talks about the situation, and then you can probably track down the video clip he played on his TV program, and you can see it for yourself. And it sounds like that now even Facebook has backed down, and Glenn Beck possibly now is being proven to have been accurate, and that even our government now seems to say it sounds like possibly this lab, they were studying it. It was like, now you can come on and go, well, I don't believe it was an accident. I believe they did it on purpose. Well, great. That can be your theory. Now find me the evidence to back it up. If you don't, then don't be spreading the theory. That's the Christian mindset is we speak the truth. We don't speak lies and we don't bear false witness. We can possibly now confirm that this lab in China was studying bats that had a coronavirus, a very infectious coronavirus, and I guess what ultimately became COVID-19. So if that may be the answer, we still don't know. Just make sure when you hear people talking about the origin of it, we want facts. We don't want crazy theories, okay? Facts. But this is a line of thought that we need to continue to research. We need to continue to study. Hopefully, the United States government will continue to research and investigate. And finally, the truth, ultimately, hopefully the truth will come out and we can, learn from it. Because we don't want this to ever happen again. Whenever you've got these labs researching these crazy things, well, on one hand, it's good that they're researching it to try to find out what to do and what not to do and how to protect us. But if they handle it in a horrible, sloppy way, then it puts the whole world at risk. And I think this is maybe a situation where that occurred. We don't know yet. We don't know. We have to go with what we do know. So it appears everyone is in agreement that it was naturally occurring, other than the Alex Joneses of the world believe it was a bioweapon created in the lab. And he claims that I think he claimed that the U.S. government is acknowledging that, but they're not acknowledging that. They're acknowledging that it comes from a lab, but it was naturally occurring. That seems to be the evidence as of right now. If they prove it was a bioweapon, well, yeah, then something needs to be done and people need to be held responsible. I'm more than willing to accept that's a possibility. But right now, I'm going to go with what the facts lead me to and then be open to listen to questions, information, and evidence that could prove otherwise. And you should be as well. All right, let's finish this.
How's China responding to this talk in the U.S.?
Well, not well. The top scientist at this lab has vigorously denied the lab had any involvement. We've heard top Chinese scientists say that while, yes, there were cases at the Wuhan market originally, they say it's far from clear that the virus originated there or even in China at all. Our NPR colleague, Emily Feng, has been in Wuhan, and she says it's quite common on the street to hear the Chinese blaming the U.S. as the source, and they often cite these world military games that were held in Wuhan last October, an explanation that obviously doesn't fly in the U.S.
So, Greg, what are the potential consequences if the origin of the virus is traced to this lab or any lab rather than a public market? What does that mean?
Well, potentially there could be lots of ramifications. China has undertaken this huge effort to reshape the narrative. It's presenting itself as overcoming the virus, as restarting its economy despite the bad numbers we heard today, and also making protective gear to help the world. So this attempt to lead a global recovery would be undercut if it turns out that China's been engaged in a cover-up of some sort. And remember, the U.S.-China relationship was very strained before the coronavirus, and this could get even worse. So a lot could hinge on determining exactly how this virus began.
All right, NPR's national security correspondent, Greg Myrie, we appreciate you following the story for us, Greg. Thanks.
My pleasure.
And also, I've heard this report. I don't have it in front of me. You can research it. China has changed their numbers. They say that their initial numbers of deaths and fatalities as a result of COVID-19, they have raised those numbers by 50%, that they were off by 50% in their initial reporting. I don't know what that brings the number to, but 50% is what they were off by, which means it was far more contagious and deadly than they originally claimed. And China should be blamed for that. They should be blamed for that. And the fact that they kept this information and the fact that their numbers were off by 50%, that put the rest of the world as being more vulnerable. A lot of people saying, it's not that big a deal, it's not that serious, when possibly this information could have helped possibly lead to precautions being put in place by other countries even quicker. And it does show that I think there's plenty of criticisms that could be leveled at the Trump administration in all of this, but he did call for a travel ban from China early on. And a lot of people, basically condemn that as basically being, almost racist. It appears that maybe he was on to something there. Now, there are a lot of other times where he downplayed it, where a lot of people were downplaying it. Let's be fair. I've played clips from all kinds of politicians saying, hey, go to the parade. Hey, go do this. Go do that. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Next thing you know, like, oh, no, we should have been worried about it. Yeah, maybe you should have been paying attention to world news because me and a friend from Nebraska were talking about this in January. So, a lot of people should have been paying attention to this. So that's some of the latest. I just wanted to kind of a free for all this morning, talk about it, throw out a lot of ideas. I don't have the answer to the question to open or not to open. I don't. I know we have a backlash coming. You give it another week. I think I stated right in the beginning of all this that people were not, after about 2 weeks, 3 weeks, people were going to start getting upset and not following the rules. I think people made it a little longer than I thought they would, but we got a major backlash coming. I think you can see it. I think you can I think you can see it in the air. I think you can feel it. I think you can just sense that people are like, done, tired of it, not going to follow the rules anymore, going out. Churches, nope, not going to follow the rules anymore. I think you're going to see a widespread backlash, a widespread protest. And once people just start breaking all the rules, then at that point, what do you do? At that point, what do you do? And I think you're going to have a lot of people fighting, a lot of people upset with each other. Look, if you think about everything we've talked about in this episode, everything is just there for division. China blaming America, America blaming China. We got, should we open, shouldn't we open? We got economic concerns, political concerns, health concerns. This is just a situation where this is going to divide people left and right, people on the left, people on the right, people in the middle. Everyone's going to have a different opinion. Everyone's going to have a different perspective. Everyone's going to argue with each other. Everyone's going to be on social media fighting with one another. You're going to have people who want things to open. Other people are going to claim, how dare you? You want people to die. And it's just going to be that kind of situation. And Christians, listen, stay out of it. Rise above it. Don't fight it. Don't be in the middle of it. Just say, no. This is a time, and just try to get people's attention on things that matter. Just getting caught up in all of that is counterproductive to what we need to be doing as a church, what Christians need to be doing. I know it's fun to get involved in all of that arguing and fighting and all of that noise, but don't let it distract you from what you need to be focusing on spiritually. Don't let it distract you to focusing on how should the church come out of this. We have a world right now that is seeing how frail life is right before their very eyes. They're worried about death. They're worried about dying. They're worried about, why is this happening? They have questions. That's why Bible sales have increased dramatically. People are reading the Bible. I've received an email from people saying, hey, I've never read the Bible before. I'm not really religious, but could you give me some tips on how to read the Bible? I've literally received those kinds of emails as a theology podcast, people reaching out. You've got people asking those kinds of questions. That's what Christians need to be looking for. Let's talk about why there's disease. Let's talk about why people die. Let's talk about the fall. Let's talk about salvation. Let's talk about the gospel. Let's read the scriptures. Let's deal with some deep philosophical questions. Let's try to just stay above all of this, because we could listen to news report after news report, and probably when we were done, we still wouldn't have an answer to the question to open or not to open. But we do have an answer. And that answer is, look, I may not be able to answer those questions, but I can answer this. There is a God. There is a purpose. There is heaven. There is hell. There is salvation. There is Jesus Christ. Here is his word. And the fall that occurred, we can basically, in a sense, catechize, which is what I've been trying to do, catechize during this time and instruct and hopefully see more people come to faith in Christ, and see maybe the church grow in strength, and maybe the church learn from some of this. There's going to be massive changes that come from this, I think, in a lot of different ways. There's going to be economic change, political change. I think there's going to be even major change within the healthcare world. I'm not in that world anymore. I spent 22 years in that world. There's going to be major changes that come from the healthcare world. There's going to be major changes all kinds of ways. What spiritual changes? How is the church going to be different in this? That's where Christians need to put their focus, all right? So just some thoughts. Wanted to do that this morning, get that out of the way, and then we can focus on other things in the next live broadcast. So if you have any questions, thoughts, comments, newsif@yahoo.com, newsif@yahoo.com, newsif@yahoo.com. Clearly, you can tell from the way I am speaking. The last thing, I don't want to get into an argument and a debate over any of this. I don't. I've tried to keep myself out of that. I do get irritated when people downplayed it. That bothered me. I get irritated when people see numbers of people dying and want to say, well, whatever. And I'm like, no, these are people, human beings created in the image of God, died and slipped into eternity. Anytime people die, it should bother us. If it's a school shooting, it doesn't matter. And it's like anytime people die, we always say, look, that many people died. Well, more people died this way. And it's always like this weird, like if I see people die, well, this many people die from drinking and driving. Well, so what? This many people die from that. Okay, well, Or what Christians always run to, well, this many people die from this. Well, more people die from abortion. Well, that is true, but can't we focus on the people dying from this first? Okay, can we do that? It's just like we ignore the death in front of us to point to the death somewhere else. It's just I don't get that mentality. let's focus on this. We can focus on the other areas people die. I'm all for it. I hate alcohol, despise alcohol, hate it with every ounce of my being, despise it. Don't understand why people would drink a substance that impairs your ability to think rationally. I don't like it. I hate it. Alcohol destroys marriages, destroys families, leads to all kinds of horrible things happening sometimes at parties. From a sexual perspective, drinking and driving, it's death toll, the addiction, alcoholism. I hate alcohol. Okay, but that doesn't mean I'm downplaying the deaths that come from alcohol by focusing on the deaths that currently are happening because of COVID-19. I'm not downplaying one over the other. The issue is right now, this is the situation. Let's talk about this. What should we do in regards to this situation? How many lives should we try to save? What should we do? I don't know. I want to save every life if possible, and I know that that's impossible because people are going to die. But I also don't want the economy to be so destroyed that people are their whole life is destroyed. They lose their home, they lose their cars, they lose their entire retirement fund, they lose their health insurance, they lose their insurance, they lose everything. They lose their savings. They lose everything. I don't want to see churches being shut down because of economic concerns. I don't want that. I don't want to see a church that is and this is what I definitely don't want to see is after all of this is said, you got all kinds of people that sit in your congregation who no longer can really tithe because they have no money. And the next thing you know, the church starts having church splits over financial concerns because the pastor can't get paid, so he's upset, or the pastor says we should do this, and everyone starts fighting about money. I don't want to see that happen as well. So the economic part is probably the one part I'm not so concerned with is politicians trying to save their jobs. I need politicians to make the tough decisions, whether it leads to them being reelected or not. That's what I need. I need politicians putting the country before their careers, putting the citizens before their reelection. That's what we need. And we need to see the government come together right now and not try to be so partisan and fight one another. We need as Christians, we need to be unified. And as our politicians, we need unity. And I could continue, but I will stop right there. Email me your thoughts. newsif@yahoo.com, newsif@yahoo.com. I'll be back live on the air shortly. God bless.